Welcome to Weight Loss and Wellness for Real, the podcast where people like you get the practical solutions and support you need to permanently lose the physical and mental weight so you can feel better and live the life you really want to live in the body and mind you really want to be living in. If you're looking to overcome your stress eating, overeating, binging behaviors, and move to a place of food and body freedom, as well as find more meaning and more moments of joy in life, you are in the right place. Hey everyone, thanks for being here and tuning in to Weight Loss and Wellness for Real. I'm your host, Heather Heinen, and today we are going to dive into something that can truly transform your experience of aging. And I'm going to talk about my beliefs around how to test, monitor, and optimize your body through lab work and hormone strategies so that you can age strong. This episode is especially for those of us in our 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and beyond, but it's also going to be for those of you in your 20s and 30s to really think about some of this as you're younger so that you can utilize some of these strategies as you age. You can kind of be prepared to do some of these things because really, no matter where we're at in our journey, we all deserve to feel strong, energized, and supported by our bodies. So let's talk about why testing can matter for aging strong. Aging strong, it's really not just about willpower or pushing through symptoms. It's about knowing what's happening inside our body and using that data to make really smart, effective choices that support our strength, our metabolism, and our longevity. And we are living in a world these days where we can actually do this. Even if your doc is not going to order these tests, there are lots of companies out there where you can order these tests yourselves. There is some investment to it financially, but it's not horribly over the top. And which is another reason I really wanted to talk about this because I think it can be such a game changer in our health as we are aging, to have these numbers, to have these markers, and to know what's actually going on. And these days, it's pretty accessible. All right, so let's talk about one of the best ways to start. You really want to start just getting comprehensive labs done. So, basic lab work that you can check regularly. These are basically just some key tests everyone should be getting, ideally at least once a year. Most health insurance plans allow for these once a year. So, let's talk about some of these foundational labs. These are the tests that just really provide a baseline view of your overall health. So, this is going to be things like a comprehensive metabolic panel. This checks liver and kidney function, electrolytes, and blood glucose. Uh, then a lipid panel. So we're talking about HDL, LDL, triglycerides. It's really important just for understanding cardiovascular health overall. This is also going to include cholesterol levels. Just you may know if you're in this space, there is a lot of controversy, and I believe as it should be, going on about high cholesterol does not necessarily mean poor health at all, may even mean some exceptional health. I'm not going to get on my soapbox about that right now, but I am just telling you lots of great new research studies coming out kind of proving this. So I would just suggest if you get tested and you come back with high cholesterol levels, but everything else is in check, and your doc is like, oh no, and you're like, oh no, and go on statins. And I would just really, really suggest digging in and reading some of the recent research yourself before going there. But again, that's obviously you and your doctor need to have a conversation about that. But my point is, a lot of these things you want to be educating yourself on the newest and latest research out there on those things. Okay, moving on. CBC, that would be a complete blood count. So that checks red and white blood cells, hemoglobin, things like that. Vitamin D. So many people are deficient, and this impacts in a huge way. Remember, vitamin D is actually a hormone. This impacts in a huge way immunity, mood, bone health, and hormone regulation. So, especially for women, you're perimenopause, menopause, you want to be checking this regularly. It matters so, so much. And then vitamin B12 and folate, really critical for energy levels, cognition, and nerve function. Ferritin and an iron panel. So low ferritin or stored iron, it's a really common cause of fatigue, particularly in women, and especially perimenopause if you're menstruating still, those kinds of things. And then HSCRP and homocysteine, those are markers of inflammation and cardiovascular risk. So those labs are a great place to start if you want to optimize how your body is functioning on a foundational level. Obviously, there's lots of others I would add to that, not just your blood sugar, but your insulin marker, which most docs will not test. That's not typically what an insurance company will cover, but it actually gives us a way better understanding of what's going on with your insulin and blood sugar. If you deal with overweightness where you're having a lot of difficulty losing it, that would be one marker. I would really find someone who can test that for you so you understand exactly what's going on with your insulin. Okay, moving on. Another one I think is so important, and probably because I went through this and still am going through it, but for so many years, and that is thyroid testing. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to ask to have your thyroid tested because maybe you're having some symptoms, right? You're gaining weight even though you're trying to lose weight. You are cold a lot. You're moody a lot. You maybe have some depressive symptoms that kind of are coming out of nowhere, like there's no situational things going on. You all of a sudden are lacking tons of energy, things like that. So you're going to go to your doc with that, and they're going to run a thing, and they're going to test, they're going to say, I'm going to test your thyroid. And then all they're going to do is test your TSH. If you are only getting your TSH tested, there is no way to know if things are working or not working with your thyroid, unless TSH comes back completely out of whack. Okay, then obviously, yeah. But here's what can happen: TSH comes back totally normal, but there could be so many other things going wrong with your thyroid, but you're never going to know that from that TSH number. So you want to advocate and educate. So educate and then advocate for yourself on this. So here's what you want to ask for and it's called a complete thyroid panel. You want to make sure, yes, they are testing TSH, but then they are also testing free T4, free T3, reverse T3, thyroid antibodies, so things like TPO and I always mess up the name of this one. Thyroglobulin, thyroglobulin, I think is how you say it. Anyway, all those things. Okay, why is it so important to test all of those things? Because low or suboptimal thyroid function, it does show up as fatigue, weight gain, depression, brain fog, thinning hair, cold hands and feet, constipation, all things that are often blamed on aging. But optimizing your free T3 can dramatically improve how you feel and function day to day. I've talked about my thyroid experience a lot. So this was starting at about age 40. I just all of a sudden was not feeling good. Performance was going down, some depressive symptoms, but I also had gone through a divorce. And so it was kind of like, okay, well, this kind of makes sense. These depressive symptoms, low energy, la la la, but by about age 45, it was like something's really wrong here. I had kind of moved through the grief of my divorce, and I felt like I was moving on in life, kind of got my shit back together, that kind of thing. But I would have these bouts of like a lot of depression and symptoms, and I was freezing cold all the time, and I started losing a ton of hair. And I was just kind of adding, I'm 5'1.5". So I always say 5'2", but my daughter swears I'm 5'1". So I say 5'1.5" just to be fair. I still think I'm 5'2", but whatever. I was putting on weight, like a couple of pounds, but for me, because I'm shorter, it was kind of a big deal, right? Like I can, like if I put on 2 pounds, I really feel it in my jeans, And so I was doing everything the same, but putting on some weight. Anyway, I was having a lot of these symptoms, but my environment, my life, things were really going well. I had just met Luke, and or not just met, we had known each other forever, but Luke and I had just gotten together when I was about 46, 47, 46, 45, 40, I don't know, somewhere in there. And I was so happy, and life was so good, and I was getting back into this routine, and I was still having all these sort of depressive symptoms. And I was like, nothing's wrong in life. What is going on? Anyway, I started looking into it, And I was training so hard and I was still restricting a lot of food. And that kind of was like, oh boy, what's going on? Is something going on with my thyroid? And this happens to a lot of women. First of all, you got perimenopause going on. So hormones are doing some crazy things anyway. Basically, they're not supporting us very well in our bodies. So that was already going on. But I am classic textbook. Maybe you are too. You are super driven, type A. You are training wicked hard. You're restricting food a whole bunch. I mean, maybe you're binging later on. That was me. But, for days, you're restricting, you're not eating enough and training wicked hard and doing all kinds of endurance sports and that kind of thing. So I was textbook for a reverse thyroid issue. And bottom line, that's exactly what it turned out to be. I also just want to share with you, I had to go through about 5 providers before I found one who knew what I was talking about and could help me. And actually, she doesn't even live in the same town I do. She is in the same state. But I'm just saying, keep advocating for yourself. Keep working to find a provider who understands some of these deeper, nuanced health issues and knows how to help you. It is so frustrating as you pay these providers who can't help you and don't know and all the things, but it is so worth it to go through all that until you get to one who can partner with you in your health journey. So anyway, it was like, then it went on to this trial and error. I had to test every 6 weeks, but that was awesome because then we actually knew what my thyroid was doing. So then she could dose my medication appropriately based on those tests every 6 weeks until we finally found a dosage of medication that started to correct my thyroid issue. And for me, that meant going on, it was a typical thyroid med like Armor, but I also had to add in compounded free T3. And it was the compounded free T3 that actually started shifting all my symptoms. And it was like a miracle. Like I felt like I was completely back to who I was in my 20s and 30s. It felt so, so good to finally have that figured out. Now, over the last couple of years, I've been actually able to lower my thyroid dose. And that's been by lifestyle change. That's been with things like eating every 3 to 4 hours. It's like creating safety in my body, mind, and soul. Like, how do I create safety for myself? That was lowering the exercise intensity and amount that I was doing. A lot of those things are helping to heal those systems in my body by creating safety in my body. So I've been able to lower that thyroid dose. I've been able to go off completely the compounded free T3. And now I am just on a very low dose of Armor. And I still test every 6 months and adjust dosing as needed based on that test. Okay, another one you want to really consider, especially women, if you are in your 50s, perimenopause. This is hormone testing. And also, men, for you, I recommend this for men as well in their 40s, like getting hormones tested, especially for men. Obviously, that would be testosterone and understanding where they're at. But here's a caveat well, not a caveat, but here's a little extra for those of you in your 20s and 30s. I would have a really good hormone panel test done when you're feeling really good. So if you're in your 30s, early 40s, and you're feeling amazing, get this test done because it's going to give you a baseline of what is right for your body because everybody is different. So I actually had my testosterone checked when I was feeling amazing at about age 33-ish. So I have that baseline, plays into later on. I'll talk about testosterone. But anyway, um, if you're feeling great, have this all checked because then you know where you feel great. So later on, if you're not feeling great, you can have the testing done again. You can see what's different and then you can adjust medication accordingly. All right. Anyway, perimenopause, as most of you probably know, because it's all out there, which I think is beautiful. We're getting educated by a lot of experts on this. It can start as early as your late 30s or early 40s, and you still are going to have regular periods while your hormones are fluctuating wildly. So here's what to test if you're still cycling. And by the way, it matters. If you're going to do these tests, it matters on what day of your cycle you are testing. And so you want to work with a practitioner who understands this and is going to give you the information on what days to test within your cycle. And understand if you get a blood test like any random day, you're just going to get fed back random hormones that are going off on that day. And because they're fluctuating all the time in perimenopause, you're not going to actually know what's happening. So, the gold standard of hormone testing is the Dutch test, and most insurance companies are not going to pay for that. I have done this personally. This was about 5 years ago as well. You can pay out of pocket for it. Just depends what you're willing to invest in your health. I think when I did it, it was around $250. I'm not sure what it's at right now. For me personally, I don't typically have an extra $250 lying around, but for me personally, it was worth the investment. I believed figuring some of that stuff out was going to be so helpful for my health later on. And I do believe if we invest financially in our health now, we're not going to be paying that back financially later on. If you're going to test hormones, Dutch test is the gold standard. It not only tests hormones, it does your cortisol, it tests and it tests metabolites. Like, how are you metabolizing your hormones, which is also really important. But basically, you want to make sure you're testing for estradiol, progesterone, testosterone, which would be both free and total testosterone, DHEAS, and then sex hormone binding globulin. You want all those things tested. As hormones start to decline, you're going to notice changes like poor sleep, irritability, anxiety, brain fog, joint pain, and lower muscle mass, right? And this is where hormone replacement therapy can be absolutely amazing. It's not just for symptom relief. This is not just for hot flashes. It is about long-term health protection and function. Does not mean everybody's a candidate for HRT or hormone replacement therapy, but I am just giving you my personal opinion. I think it can be a game changer um, for anyone who it's a good fit for in regards to athletic performance as we age, particularly, as well as for functioning for longevity and health as we age. So let's talk about estrogen a little bit. There's a book called, I think it's called Estrogen Matters. Cannot think of the author right now. Another book called The New Menopause, which probably many of you have heard about because it's all over social media, by Dr. I forget her name too, Dr. Claire. Her last name's Claire. Anyway, I really recommend both those books to my clients who are at this stage in their journey. It really talks about why it's this really big misconception that estrogen replacement is only for hot flashes or mood swings, but it is so much more than that. Estradiol is really protective, especially for bone density. So, estrogen helps maintain the balance between bone building and bone breakdown. So, without it, we lose bone rapidly after menopause, really increasing the risk of osteoporosis and fractures. Then there's joint health, plays a key role in keeping joints lubricated and reducing inflammation. Many women notice joint stiffness and pain during perimenopause, and especially if you're an athlete, amateur athlete, big worker outer, whatever it is, you may notice a lot of this as you hit 40s and 50s. And a lot of it is due to low levels of estradiol. Brain function. It supports cognition, memory, and even verbal fluency. A drop in estrogen can really contribute to brain fog, mental fatigue. I was having a lot of, and I have this a little bit going on. Like, I just cannot remember words, which is very different for me. That's something new. I know a lot of women when they're doing that, they're like, "Oh my gosh, am I having these dementia symptoms?" Or also the doc will often say, "It's just normal aging." No, it's not. No, it is not. No, it is not. Okay. That's due to a drop in estrogen. Also, it protects our cardiovascular health. It helps maintain healthy blood vessels. And as we know now, can reduce the risk of heart disease. And then mood and emotional regulation. It boosts serotonin and dopamine, really helping with anxiety, depression. When I get women who come in for therapy and they're in their 40s and maybe early 50s, or, they've gone through menopause, they're not on HRT, and all of a sudden, out of the blue, they're experiencing super high anxiety or these bouts of depressive symptoms. Nothing else has changed in their environment. Nothing is going on. I immediately send them in to get testing done, right? Because I'm automatically thinking, okay, nothing's going on in their environment that caused this, kind of came out of the blue. There's probably something hormonal going on here. So, yes, estrogen matters for how we feel, but it also matters for how we function as we age. Okay, now the role of progesterone and testosterone. Let's talk about progesterone first. It's often the first hormone to decline in perimenopause. And progesterone helps with sleep, especially when taken at night in oral form. It has a real calming effect on the brain. It reduces anxiety, it supports emotional stability, and it helps with irritability. It balances estrogen and protects the uterine lining. So, if it's the first hormone to start to decline in perimenopause, we're going to see things like not sleeping well, a little bit, not a little, could be a lot more anxiety, right? Emotional lability, swinging back and forth, getting irritable, less patience. So, really, if you're considering HRT, these are things you want to think about. I started progesterone first when I was about 43. Really just, and this is fairly typical. I'm not saying this is right for you. You need to talk with your doctor, but fairly typical. If you're into this stuff, you're going to start oral micronized progesterone first, and you're going to take it before bed. You might start with a 100 milligrams first, and then 200, and usually if you're still cycling, you're only going to take it during your luteal phase because that's when progesterone is dropping a whole bunch. So there's all these different cycles and ways to do it, but it's a way to start early on protecting your sleep, helping with mood, irritability, and patience, all those things. Really important. Okay, so now let's talk about testosterone. Many women have low testosterone, especially perimenopause going into postmenopause. And testosterone, it's not just for men, right? It supports muscle mass, libido, motivation, confidence, and mental clarity. So small bioidentical doses for women, often comes in a cream, can really restore vitality when monitored properly. I'll give you a little just tell you my own journey with this. So, like I said, I actually had testosterone checked when I was like 35. I don't remember why I was doing that. It was part of some other testing I was doing. But basically, what came back was for me, I have naturally pretty high testosterone levels. Makes sense. I do carry a fair amount of muscle mass, so that's just who I am. That's how I'm built. And then again, testosterone is a big part of motivation and what drives us, but in our right amounts. Okay, so just having higher testosterone does not mean you're necessarily functioning optimally. You want to find out what is optimal for you. But anyway, I knew what my numbers were when I was feeling really good, physically, mentally, emotionally. Okay, so now I'm in sort of this journey of, and I'll talk about this sometime because I hope it's helpful for others, my journey of working with my thyroid. And also now I've been on a journey of HRT, hormone replacement therapy. And that's just been within the last few years, other than the progesterone, which I started way earlier. But I am now on an estradiol patch twice a week. I'll talk about that at some other point. And I just started testosterone. So I had been on this other hormone replacement stuff. I was starting to feel amazing again, just super strong, just really great mood, just feeling back to myself again, right? Feeling back to myself again. And then in the last, I would say 6 months, it was sort of like I'm losing that drive again. Just something's off, lower libido than I was used to, maybe TMI, but whatever. Always hoping like just sharing these things is going to help someone else. Anyway, I think these are things we should be openly talking about and discussing. So, lower libido, just out of the usual for me. And it was like, I wonder where my testosterone is at. I'm 51. I haven't had it checked in a long time. Okay, went to my awesome practitioner who has worked with me through all these things. And she's like, yeah, let's get you tested. Okay, so we test. Now, the results come back. This was about 4 weeks ago. Results come back, and I'm in the normal range. But if so, you read the report, it says normal range. You have to go look at your actual numbers. Because when I went in and looked at actual numbers, yeah, I'm in the normal range, but I'm in the low normal range. So for me, that's really low. That is not optimal. I may be normal. I'm not into being normal. I want to be optimal as I age and optimal for me. So she was right with me. She was like, yeah, compared to that original test, blah, 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 you're very low for you. So even though it's normal, it's not normal for me. And so I just started with a low dose of testosterone cream that I use every night. You just rub it on thin skin area. And I mean, maybe this is TMI, but I'm just going to share. It was immediate. Immediate libido is back, immediate energy levels back, immediate just feeling better back. So I don't know. It can, for some of us, that's a huge one. And I just don't I want you to understand, especially if you're a woman, that testosterone can also really come into play and be a game changer for some of us. All right. So I talked to you about what I'm personally doing. I've got 200 progesterone that I take. Now I take every night, not just during the luteal phase. I'm still not menopausal, but I am definitely perimenopausal. I am just recently like having some periods that are just out of whack. Like I'll kind of get a light period every 2 weeks. So things are definitely changing, is what I will say. And I'm cool with that. I'm ready actually to be done with my period. But whatever, it's like so I know I am in a major hormone flux right now. So I'm taking that 200 oral progesterone every single night. I was really dealing with lack of sleep, like having a really hard time sleeping about 3 months ago. So that's when I just started taking the oral progesterone every single night and not just during the luteal phase. And then I'm on 0.05 milligram estradiol transdermal patch. I change that twice a week. And then, like I said, one click of that, a very low dose of testosterone cream nightly. And then I've got my Armor Thyroid, low dose of that I'm taking every morning. For me, this does not mean this is right for you. I'm just sharing my story to try to encourage you that if you're feeling like crap, these would be the tests that you can get done and kind of work with a practitioner who knows what they're doing to really start to find optimal functioning again. Okay. So if you're dealing with symptoms that are really wrecking your life, like we don't have to live this way. We don't. So anyway, that protocol. It's been a game changer for me. Again, it's not just about easing up some of these symptoms. It's about optimizing how I live, train, and age strong. Okay, I really wanted to throw this in here because this has been one of the biggest hurdles in working with my clients. This was for me myself. It's how to find a provider who really gets this stuff. So, unfortunately, many conventional doctors are still really hesitant to prescribe HRT or go beyond TSH for the thyroid testing. That's a whole long story. If you don't know about it, read one of those books I recommended, The New Menopause or Estrogen Matters, to understand why doctors were taught that HRT is bad and scary and don't use it. Long story short, that was the Women's Health Initiative. There's a whole story behind it, but it was so much misinformation. It makes me sick to my stomach. But anyway, you can look into that yourself. I'm not going to go into that here, but there's still carryover from that. So a lot of doctors, by the way, who never really get trained in menopause or perimenopause, they're still very nervous to prescribe it. Not their fault, right? This is just how they've been trained and educated. They think they're doing the best thing. We know now they're not, but a lot of doctors do not have time to study all this new stuff that's coming up with all of this. But there are providers out there who specialize in this, and they really can change your life. So here's a great way to start to find one. More than likely, searching for a more integrated medicine doctor. I'm not even talking just a functional medicine doctor. I'm talking someone who, and that's who I found, an integrated medicine doctor. These are typically more functionally minded docs, but they all, or PAs or nurse practitioners, but they also are cool with prescribing medication and not going to try to sell you all the supplements to fix this stuff. By the way, well, okay, hold on. I'm going to keep going here so I can stick with what I'm trying to talk about. So you're looking for a more integrated medicine doc, NP, PA, a hormone specialist, or where they talk about, hey, I specialize in hormone treatment, or like a menopause certified practitioner, starting with directories like menopause.org, which is the North American Menopause Society. That means anyone listed there has been extra trained in this stuff. Okay. And then another one is a4m.com. So the letter A, the number 4, the letter M.com. That's anti-aging medicine. And those would be good places to start to try to find someone. All right. I'm going to get on a soapbox here, and I have some warnings for you. If you are working with someone for HRT and they want to put a pellet in you, I this is just me personally. Maybe I'm going to get some, nasty comments from it, but I'm okay with it because I've read the research, and maybe down the line we're going to have new research that suggests that pellets are great, and that'll be cool. And if that comes out, I will retract what I'm saying here. But with what I have read in the current research studies we have, I feel very comfortable saying if you are working with someone for hormone replacement therapy and they want to put a pellet in you, I would really advise you to, again, read the book Estrogen Matters or The New Menopause by Dr. Claire. First of all, pellets are going to cost you a lot of money. They are not covered by insurance. Second of all, you have no idea the dosage that you are getting through a pellet, right? The pellet is in there for like 3 months. You can't take it out. You don't know exactly what you are absorbing through the pellet. And third of all, you can't remove it for 3 months. So you cannot titrate doses quickly based on symptoms you might experience. So if you feel like crap after getting the pellet put in and you can't correct that for months on end, and finally understand, if you're being told you need to use a pellet, that's all they're going to offer you. That's because practitioners make a ton of money off of these, okay? It's like if you have a practitioner trying to sell you a whole bunch of supplements for your symptoms, they make a lot of money off those. So you need to know you absolutely can get estradiol patches, oral micronized progesterone, and testosterone covered by insurance. There are different ways to do this. You sometimes have to go about doing this in a very roundabout way. I often share my own journey with this. I'm hoping that in 3 to 5 years, this is just going to be so much more commonplace. It probably will. But about 5 years ago, when I was starting on this journey, and right now, it can still be really tough to get a doctor to prescribe this through your insurance. So, hey everyone, just a real quick interruption. I'm really excited to tell you about PhysiVantage, a company I have used for years and years and who I have recently partnered with in an ambassadorship for the podcast. This is one of the highest quality supplement companies out there. And the best part is I know the owner and his commitment to quality in his products. I actually interviewed the owner, Eric Hurst, on the podcast a while back, and you can hear him talk firsthand about his commitment to quality in episode, I think it was 171, if you're interested. Also, in that one, there was a ton you can learn about aging optimally and performing at your best. I think when people make the decision to add some supplements into their daily habits, they don't think often how important it is to know and vet the companies you are buying from. There is no regulation on supplements. And so when you buy something, you really have no idea what you are getting. You really want to vet the companies heavily so that you know what you are spending your money on and exactly that you're getting exactly what you believe you are buying. So with PhysiVantage, you really don't have to think about it. What you buy is the highest quality of what you can get. I use the PhysiVantage PowerPlex plant-based protein complex. And no, I am not plant-based, but I'm not doing well with dairy right now, and whey protein causes some issues for me. This is something I'm working on. But in the meantime, in order for me to get in my optimal daily protein amount for maintaining lean body mass, keeping my appetite in check, and for athletic performance, I have to supplement with a protein powder, and this is my favorite. I alternate between vanilla and chocolate, and this plant-based protein complex is different than others out there in that it includes all the essential amino acids. So it's like a whey protein, has all the essential amino acids. Most plant-based protein powders don't. It also has creatine and beta-alanine in it. These are huge bonuses. Plus, PhysiVantage plant protein only has a few carbs in it, where most plant protein powders have lots and lots. If you do well with whey protein, then use their whey protein blend. It's also really great. PhysiVantage has lots of great products that you can check out, but another one that I find so helpful for my goals and lifestyle is Redux HP. And this is an all natural pain relief, which helps to improve recovery from rigorous exercise, supports a healthy inflammation response, combats muscle breakdown, and improves performance. But the best is it's an all natural way to relieve aches, pains, and muscle soreness. This has saved me from popping ibuprofen for the couple of migraines I was getting twice a month, as well as when I had a big climbing or biking day and would wake up sore. So if you don't know how bad things can get from popping Ibu, do a little research. Avoid Ibu, in my opinion, really important for our health long term. So anyway, using this product instead can be a really great way to lessen pain naturally and inflammation. You can get a discount on any PhysiVantage product by going to physivantage.com. PhysiVantage is spelled PhysiVantage. So like physical advantage, PhysiVantage, and use my code Heather Heinen. Capital HEATHER, capital HEYNEN, all one word, no spaces, Heather Heinen, and you will save some money on any product you choose. I also have a link in the episode description below that you can use. Check it out and see all that they have to offer. I'm just going to tell you, the way I started down this journey, I could not find a doc who would prescribe any of the HRT stuff because the doc I was working with my thyroid, who is so awesome, was not into all of this and she was not comfortable prescribing. I know my body really well. I had a feeling what was going on. I got tested. I wanted to do some HRT. So what I had to do was I used, and there's some great online clinics, by the way, for this, which specialize in this with some really good doctors standing behind them. But the problem is you have to pay out of pocket, right? But I decided it was worth it to me to go to an online clinic who specializes in hormone replacement therapy. I paid to have a consult with a doctor there, and they immediately, based on my testing and symptoms, prescribed everything I was asking for. So I did have to pay out of pocket initially for those prescriptions. But then what I did was I interviewed a couple OBGYNs in town, in the town I live in, who I interviewed and had conversations with. There were three of them, asking if they would be willing to partner with me on this HRT journey. I had two who said, nope, absolutely not. You're going to get breast cancer. Okay, whatever. Read the books, people. Read the research papers. But the third one I met with, she was so awesome. She was like, I am not an expert in this, but I really want to learn because she's working with women my age, right? And she just said she was very willing to partner with me in this. So she took over my prescriptions so then I could put them through insurance and not bleed myself dry financially every month. So I'm just sharing this story because I think it's really important to understand if you are getting shut down or if you feel, and I have so many clients who are dealing with this, right? You feel it's too expensive because now I got to buy all these supplements and I got to get the pellet and insurance won't cover and la, la, la. There are ways around this and ways. Listen, I believe you all deserve to feel really, really good as you age. And I believe, as women in particular, because it's just my heart, we really deserve to optimize our health as we age. Men's health is way beyond ours already. Okay. I mean, nobody's thinking twice about, taking taking a purple pill for erectile dysfunction, but nobody's talking about women's low libido. You know what I mean? It's just like such a double standard. Okay, whatever. That's another soapbox. But we as women really deserve to feel good in our 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and beyond. And not only that, but to age in a really healthy way. Most important with all this, advocate for yourself. Educate yourself and advocate for yourself. It is so worth it. It is worth the time and energy. You deserve care that's personalized, informed, and proactive. All right. Aging strong, it doesn't happen by accident. It happens when you learn how to support your body with the right tools, and hormones are one of the most powerful tools we have. So, lab testing, HRT, and a knowledgeable provider can really help you restore what's missing so you can keep doing the things you love, right? For me, that's climbing, biking, lifting, laughing, and that's just being able to be really functional as I age into my 70s, 80s, and beyond. You are not broken. You're not done. and you definitely are not too old to absolutely feel amazing. Thanks for being here today. If this episode helped you, share it with a friend or leave a review. It really helps the show. And if you want to get a little bit more into this stuff, if you're like, all right, I'm feeling motivated and inspired to start educating myself, those 2 books, Estrogen Matters by the authors I can't remember, I'm sorry. And then, but just search it on Google or Amazon. It's right there. And then the new Menopause by Dr. Claire. All right. Until next time, let's keep training. Let's keep fueling. Let's keep aging strong. We will talk soon.
The information in this podcast is intended to provide a broad understanding and knowledge of healthcare topics. This information is for educational purposes only and should not be considered complete and should not be used in place of advice from your physician or healthcare provider. We recommend you consult your physician or healthcare professional before beginning or altering your personal exercise, diet, or supplementation program.
Did you know you can find a lot more help from me on my website? Go to heatherheynen.com. Heynen is spelled Heynen, and there you will find links to my online courses, how I work with clients one-on-one, as well as online with my coaching and counseling services that I offer.